Welcome to Galactic Historian. This is a series of videos and broadcasts where I cover the lore of sci-fi and space games and other content. One of my favorite vehicles in Star Citizen is the Cyclone, and with the recent concept vehicle of the Ranger, I became very interested in the manufacturer of both vehicles, Tumbril. And since the devs of Star Citizen recently published the lore behind the manufacturer, I figured it'd be a good time to take a look at the last great car manufacturer in the age of interstellar travel. The story of Tumbril starts in the Centauri system. The system is one of the first ever settled by humanity. When I say first, I mean first. It was discovered in 2365, a full 15 years before the formation of the first combined human government of the UNE. When it was discovered, the third planet in the system, known as Saisei, was discovered to have a massive potential for terraformation. The planet was put up for auction for terraforming and colonization, and a Japanese company named Just Colonial won the bidding war. The result would be a world with slightly elevated O2, architecture built with traditional Japanese style and culture in mind, and even today is considered to be one of the most beautiful planets in human space. It even became the home of Musashi Industrial and Starflight Concern, the makers of the Freelancer, Starfarer, Whole series, and more. Saisei was so successful, in fact, that it pulled attention and funds from planets in the system, including the second planet from the star known as Yar. Yar was once a Venusian-type world, covered in thick clouds and an acidic environment. It was terraformed, and the result was a dry, dusty world, whose main feature was its massive red desert. The main city of the planet is called Archibald Station. Initially built as a scientific outpost, it exploded in size after precious metals were discovered in a mountain range on the planet. As the only place able to support heavy ships, it became the hub of this new land rush. However, after about 100 years of boom, the wealth dried up, causing the landing zone to shrink in size and population until it was little more than its original outpost. Much of the planet suffered the same fate, as outposts and mining operations all over the planet were being consumed by the ever-shifting red sands of Yar. Just outside Archibald was one of these small stations. Built in the middle of the Red Desert, its purpose was to monitor the terraforming process. It was abandoned to the Red Sands shortly after the completion of the project, but in 2501, the University of Saisei purchased the outpost and refurbished it, turning it into a research outpost for its professors and students. The first residents of this refurbished outpost were the Crosbys, a husband and wife team of mechanics whom were hired to maintain the landing pads. When they arrived in 2503, Mrs. Crosby was quite pregnant and gave birth to their daughter, Kavaya, shortly after settling in. Being the only child in the sparsely populated outpost, she spent most of her time being tutored by the professors and postdocs visiting the station, the rest helping her parents maintain the systems of the outpost, which were constantly being tested by the fine red sands of the planet. This gave her valuable experience in how to protect machines from harsh environments. When she was 15, a new visitor arrived at the outpost, Meredith Dews, and her teenage son, Aaron. Dr. Dews was a biotech specialist exploring how to effectively grow crops in harsh environments like the Red Sands. This meant she spent much of her time visiting her crops planted in various parts of the desert surrounding the outpost. One day, she left on foot and never returned. The outpost mobilized into a search team, but a harsh sandstorm had picked up, which made the search tough. Luckily, the Crosbys had been modifying an old Crossfire Land Cruiser to traverse the harsh terrain quickly in case of such an emergency. Mr. Crosby, Kavaya, and Aaron left in the Land Cruiser to search for the missing professor. They found her at the bottom of a ravine, unconscious and half buried in sand from the harsh winds. Aaron quickly realized that without the modified vehicle searching quickly, the sands would have covered and killed his mother, thus owing her survival to the ingenuity of the mechanics and their daughter. He became fascinated with how the Crosby family had modified the wheeled vehicle to survive the harsh conditions and routinely joined Kavaya as she maintained the facility. Of course, being teenagers, it wasn't the only reason Aaron was visiting the girl, and a romance soon blossomed between the two. When they were 17, Aaron returned to Saisei with his mother, but they still kept in contact. Then, when it came time for Kavaya to go off to university, it was a natural choice to join Aaron at the University of Saisei. There, Aaron got a degree in business, while Kavaya earned her degree in engineering. After college, they married, and both got high-paying jobs in the capital city of Saisei, Fujin City. The jobs weren't fulfilling for either of them, and they frequently mused about doing something different. They discussed their past with the old Land Cruiser and how they could improve other vehicles to survive harsh conditions. However, it never came to anything, as the pay of their current jobs was just too good. Soon, that all changed when they got called back to Yar to take care of Kavaya's ailing parents. After a few weeks of taking care of the elderly couple, both Mr. and Mrs. Crosby would die within days of one another. Kavaya and Aaron were going through their old parents' possessions when they came across the Land Cruiser that originally brought them together. Upon this discovery, they had an exchange which would change the universe forever.
What do we do with this?
Let's make our own.
Taking jobs as the new landing pad operators, the couple spent their off hours on a brand new design. And because they had been stripping parts from an old loader cart, they decided to name this new prototype Tumbril, the name of an old kind of cart popular in the French Revolution. They presented their prototype to the university, who gave them a grant to continue their work, thinking it would help cut down on operating costs at the outpost. Now working full-time, they were finally able to finish the production model by the end of 2535. A year later, they incorporated as Tumbril Land Systems on Sci-fi, and gave their tough buggy a name, the DX-20. It was able to survive the rough terrain and climate of Yar, and as a bonus, was really fun to drive. However, they weren't able to sell many on the market. In a universe where spaceships could cover distances instantly faster, there wasn't much demand for a wheeled ground vehicle. While the couple were disappointed, they just thought that the DX-20 was ahead of its time, and the market would eventually vindicate their tough, fun-to-drive rover. Their faith was vindicated, but not exactly for the reason they thought. 5 years later, just one system away, the first interspecies war was sparked when the newly discovered Tavaran surprised the UPE and declared war on humanity. The military panicked, not prepared for such a ferocious attack on that side of their territory, most of the defense plans being set for a war with the other recently discovered species, the Xi'an. They also found their general preparedness to be woefully lacking in ships, equipment, and personnel. The army knew they needed ground vehicles to support their troops, so they quickly put together trials of all the available vehicles on the market. The result was a blowout. Tumbril's DX-20 was rougher, tougher, and just better than any of the other competition. With only minor changes, the DX-20 rolled into combat with the UPE army. With this came a massive scale-up of production, both because of the demand from the military and also from the invading Tavaran forces, who were knocking at Sci-fi's door, an ever-vigilant reminder of what they were working for. With the outstanding success of the DX-20, the couple were approached by the UPE and asked for new designs to further support ground troops. Taking inspiration from previous centuries, they designed a tank to further support frontline operations. Soon, they were rolling off the assembly lines alongside the DX-20 and shipped straight to the battlefield. Soldiers raved about the reliability, toughness, and joy of the DX-20 gave them. This elevated the brand, making Tumbril a household name all over the UPE. After the war ended, their sales skyrocketed in both their public and private sector. When the Second Tavaran War broke out years later, Tumbril again introduced what they felt would be the battlefield equalizer to replace the aging DX-20. Dubbed the Nova Tonk, this armored vehicle proved its worth quickly. The Battle of Korean Pass in 2605 saw 3 Novas holding off an entire Tavaran strike team for 16 hours. 10 years after the end of the Second Tavaran War, Aaron and Kavaya would retire their position at Tumbril. Still, for over 200 years, the company would remain the premier ground vehicle manufacturer for humanity, developing the iconic C-Series and Timura ground vehicle lines. Things were riding so high that they endorsed a little-known vid series called Galactic Historian, asking their customers to like Galactic Historian videos, subscribe to them, and even help out on Patreon if they could. Such a great company, really. However, as the Meza regime was coming to an end, budget cuts would force Tumbril to rely on its private sales more than the government contracts. This allowed for their government division to start work on new lines of vehicles designed specifically for the public market. Unfortunately, all of these new lines would fail spectacularly. This did irreversible damage to the brand, which began to falter and fail. In the 2850s, the company churned through CEO after CEO, attempting to pull them out of the death spiral of falling profits. Finally, in 2862, the company filed for bankruptcy. Its facilities were shuttered, and the brand seemed to be destined to fade into obscurity. That was until one Terence Nabin came into the picture. He was a charismatic entrepreneur who partnered with his own investment firm, Devco Group, and some other outside investors to buy the Tumbril brand in 2941. Nabin was cut from the same cloth as Aaron and Kavaya, having a love for ground vehicles, especially the old Tumbrils, believing there was still a market for them, noting that the old C-Series was now a collector's item used by many homesteaders on the frontier. Nabin believed so much in this new brand that he made himself the CEO of Tumbril, promising to bring back the brand in a way that Aaron and Kavaya would have wanted. In 2947, the company released the first new vehicle from Tumbril in almost a century, the Tumbril Cyclone. It was a love letter to the old Tumbril vehicles. They even re-released the Nova Tonk that same year to aid in the current war against the Vandul. Both were massive hits, spurring Tumbril to release another brand new vehicle, the Ranger. It's a two-wheeled motorcycle built to be the fast, nimble, tough, reliable, and, as always, fun to drive. The hallmark of the Tumbril brand for centuries. Though it has been a rocky road, Tumbril has proven time and again that no matter how far humanity advances, there will always be a place for those who need to feel the road beneath them as they roll into the future. Thanks for watching. I'd like to take this time to thank all of those who've helped to make this happen by subscribing to our Patreon. Adam Tresidder, Lonnie Martin, Maddie LaRusso, and The Huntress. As always, you guys fucking rock. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Let me know what you think about Tumbril. Do you like them? Do you hate them? What is your favorite vehicle? Until next time, remember, ex Historia ad Astra.